if you're talking about truly contending, you're talking about like 15 new starters on this team.
Yeah, that was Ryan, and he's right. This team, that's what this team needs. So how do you attack this? Obviously, they spent a lot of money in free agent to try and patch up all their problems, and that fell flat. I guess that's selling that sentence short. That did not work at all. So you got to do what other NFL teams do. You draft, you develop, you re-sign, but that's not a quick process.
True. And here's the good news, bad news for the Patriots this offseason. The bad news is all of their positions of need are not spots that can be very well addressed in free agency. They really need wide receivers. Oh, well, all of the wide receivers are either getting franchise tagged or re-signing with their current team. So then you're left with basically Calvin Ridley as the top option. Okay, well, we'll wait on wide receiver. We can address that in the draft. How about offensive tackle? And then you look at the offensive linemen who are available, and the best offensive tackle available is Mike Onwenu, who you already had. Okay, well, who's like the second or third best? Oh, that's Trent Brown, who you already had. Like, it's just not a good free agency class for offensive tackles. So the spots that they really need help are the spots that just are not that deep in free agency, including tight end. They don't have a tight end on the roster. The best tight end in free agency this year is Hunter Henry, who they already had. So that's the bad news for the Patriots offseason. The good news is all of those spots that we've mentioned are very, very deep in the draft. So this is a way, when you look at the Patriots free agency, it won't shock me if there's a couple of surprising additions, surprising moves, a defensive starter or two who gets added as we're all looking around and saying, what in the world? The defense was not the problem last year. The offense was the problem. They may have to wait on some of that for the draft because the good news of the offense for the offense this offseason is wide receiver, super deep in the draft. Offensive tackle, super deep in the draft. Tight end, you can get some good early day 3 options. So kind of a good news, bad news for the Pats this offseason.
Okay, before we get much more into the free agency stuff, the Pats did use the transition tag on Kyle Duggar yesterday, which is different from the exclusive or non-exclusive franchise tag. Explain to me why they used the transition tag on Duggar. I understand there is a money difference, but it leaves you totally unprotected if another team decides to offer him that same money and there's no compensation coming back in return.
Yeah, well, we've reached the point of the NFL offseason where we're using lawyer terms and contract terms. So welcome to transition tag as opposed to non-exclusive as opposed to franchise tag. Essentially, why the Patriots did this was they're struggling to reach a long-term deal with Kyle Duggar. He thinks he's worth more than what the Patriots are willing to offer. So what the transition tag does is it says, hey, you have to come back to us next year on a 1-year deal that is worth the average of the top 10 safeties. So It's about $13 million this year. So we have this deal set aside. We've got it. You're coming back for that. Unless, Kyle Duggar, you can go out and find a team who does pay you what you think you're worth and is willing to go higher than we are. Then they say, say whatever the team is, says, yeah, Kyle, we want you 3 years at $40 million. Then he can come back to the Patriots and say, all right, match this offer or don't. 3 years, $40 million. And if you don't, I'm out of here. And then the Patriots have a choice. So this is the Patriots both saying, we don't think that this offer that you keep asking for is out there. This is your chance. Go get it. If you really think that that's your market value, go find it. And then the other part of it is what is normally the risky part is if he does get that offer, then the Patriots would not be entitled to a compensation pick, which usually happens when your best free agents leave. But the Patriots are planning to spend so much money in free agency and are probably going to lose so few high-end players anyway that they probably weren't going to get a comp pick anyway. So there's very little downside to them. Worst case, somebody else says, yep, we think you're super valuable. And then the Patriots can say, yes, we want to match it, or no, we don't. Thanks for your time here and good luck.
But for a team whose only real strong point right now is the defense, can you afford to lose Kyle Duggar for what amounts to a few $1,000,000? The difference between the transition tag and just the normal franchise tag.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a gamble, but they're also pretty convinced that that offer is not going to exist for him. Like, he keeps thinking that 3 years, 40 million, whatever you want to call it, is going to be out there. 3 years, 45 million. And this is their way of saying, we just don't think there's a team that's going to pay you that much money. Good luck. We're kind of calling your bluff on this. Go talk to the other 31 teams. If there truly is a 31 of the 31 is going to put that in writing, great, go ahead. I totally see the point of, like, you don't want to lose anybody off of a roster that's already not very good. In which case, then just match the offer and keep them around.
But the other part of it, too, is if I'm an agent or if I'm Duggar, or anybody who's going to free agency, the cap in the NFL went up, $30 million this year? I mean, a lot of teams have a lot of money to throw around. All it takes is one team to get stupid.
Definitely. And, I think when you look at the franchise tag, which was one of the Patriots' other options, is they could have paid him a little bit more. It would have been like 1 year, $16 million. But then he wouldn't have had the opportunity to go talk to other teams. Like, done, no matter what, You're here. So that was an option because the Patriots have funny money this offseason. They can do whatever they want. I do think a little bit of that may have to do with Gerard Mayo being a former player. Players hate the franchise tag. They don't like that it's an option. Mayo said at the Combine, look, I don't want guys who don't want to be here. So if you're not somebody who's going to buy in, then I don't want you here, which I do get for year one. If he's trying to instill like a completely different culture, then I don't know that it would be super helpful to have players who are complaining in the locker room like, man, this team won't pay me. And, they're franchise tagging me. This stinks. I could have made 3 years, 40 million on the open market. So I think that probably plays into it as well.
In my mind, tackle's far more important than safety for any NFL team. And Onwenu, because he used a transition tag on Duggar, is leaving through free agency. I know he didn't want to re-sign when Belichick was the head coach. Do the Patriots have a shot of bringing him back?
Yes, they have a shot, but it's going to be a very intriguing time for Onwenu because he's fired his representative, his longtime agent who helped him with the rookie contract and basically the first 4 years of his career. And then once he's 10 days away from getting paid, getting that massive contract, then he calls up the agent and says, hey, you're out. I'm not willing to pay the 6% or whatever it is on the contract for you. So he is going to be negotiating on his own behalf, which is a risky move. Like Lamar Jackson did it. And I think it's one thing if you have a relationship with the general manager and you have a relationship with the owner. He kind of knew that he was going to really drive a hard bargain there and try to stay there. Onwenu is going to be talking to a bunch of GMs that he's never met before. So it's going to be a fascinating kind of free agency period for him. The Patriots would love to have him back. I think we're pretty certain of that. He offers position flexibility. And most importantly, as you mentioned, offensive tackle is just such a big need. Like, it doesn't matter that the draft is deep of offensive tackles if you need two of them.
You're not need more than two. You need to keep taking them. You need as many tackles as you can get.
And wide receivers and maybe quarterbacks and tight ends. So, yes, I'm with you. You got to spend big on him if you can.
All right, Chad Graff with The Athletic. So you talked about the money that the Patriots are expected to be spending here. In terms of trades, you wrote about a few different options. Go ahead and tell me about the most likely one and the one that is unlikely but should happen. And among them, you list Mac Jones to the Vikings for a 5th-round pick, Devontae Parker to the Panthers for a 7th-rounder here in another year. The number 3 pick for Justin Jefferson, and you give your kind of odds on all these things, but pick one that you think will happen, one that you want to happen for the Patriots.
So I think the Patriots would definitely be willing to trade Devontae Parker for whatever they can get for him, if possible. I don't know that they've been enamored with his start and with what he did last season. So if they can get a 7th for him, I think they do that. Similar to Mac Jones, I think they may wait a little bit and see who doesn't land with a quarterback, and then suddenly maybe they're more interested. So that will probably eventually happen if we're talking likely. But the fun ones are the ones that are a lot less likely. Like, who would say no in Justin Jefferson? Like, if you're the Patriots, do you say no to giving up the number 3 pick for the best non-quarterback in the NFL? Probably the most marketable guy. Like, for a team that, as we were discussing with Matthew Slater and lacking, kind of star power and interesting guys, this guy is at the top of the charts. So this is a deal that I think both teams are going to say no to because the Vikings can't lose him and the Patriots are going to jumpstart a rebuild. But as far as like fun scenarios that are interesting to think about when it's March, whatever, and we still got a week before free agency and a month before the draft, like that's a super fun one that won't happen, but I think it's super intriguing.
Number 3 to the Vikings for Justin Jefferson. Sign Russell Wilson on no money. Boom, you got an offense.
Perfect.
You got an offense day one.
Got no one to protect Russell Wilson, but you're fine.
I don't understand like the 100-person staffs and the months of hand-wringing. I just did it. It's done.
Okay.
Do that.
Yeah, Elliot Wolf, we just solved it.
Yeah. So that's easy. All right.
Done.
Chad, I'm sorry to waste your time like this. We could have done this 10 minutes ago.